Greetings, Joseph Kursky here with you. In this video, let's collect data with Survey 123, build a web map, and classify and symbolize the resulting data. Now, there are several reasons why we want to use Survey 123 for this particular project. They include, one, you can crowdsource the field survey, so your students or any other person does not necessarily have to know anything about GIS, and they don't have to be logged into anything, and they don't have to have the Survey 123 mobile app. Also, it is much like the experience of SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, where you're dragging and dropping, as we'll see, a form based on true, false, multiple choice, and other kinds of answers. So, the third reason is because it's tied to the web GIS ArcGIS platform, so you can seamlessly integrate maps, layers, and information. Now, this is the survey that my colleagues at Uville University set up. I'm filling it out right now, just like you filled it out when you were out in the field or in the lab. Mapping a storm drain. So I'm entering the time that I collected the data, because in this case, I collected it a couple of years ago. And this was the location of the drain in New Mexico at 33 North, 106 West. It says my data was sent, just like you've seen on your screen. Now, once we've got that filled out, here is my picture of my storm drain. And the nice thing about Survey 123 is that it creates behind the scenes something called a feature service. A feature service. That's like the Lego bricks in a Lego structure. So once you've created a survey, it creates all that sort of geodatabase, GIS layer type stuff behind the scenes. It creates all of that structure for you, the G part, the I part, and the S part. So the resulting map that is fed from the survey is something you can display here. For example, my points, Anita Palmer's points out in California, your points out in Buffalo, New York, etc. So you've got an instant gratification sort of method here. While the data is being collected, this map is automatically getting fed, much like the JHU coronavirus dashboard got fed from CDC, WHO, and other sources. Now let me show you how to create one of these things. I've got a couple surveys in the Uville ArcGIS organizational subscription account. I'm going to create a blank survey. There's other ways to create a survey. There's some blank templates, and there's also a way to use Excel if you want more power. But let's go ahead and create this just by dragging and dropping items from a web form. Again, much like you'd experience with Google Forms or SurveyMonkey. But in this case, of course, it is much more powerful because you can actually map and analyze. Remember, the map is not the endpoint. The map is a means to a greater goal of understanding something in a richer, deeper way. I'm going to add a multiple choice. I could add date, time, lots of choices here. Dragging and dropping these questions onto a web form. So, for example, I might want to say upload a photo of your storm drain. And so I've edited that. I've added a photo type of question, and now I want to add a map. That's kind of important, isn't it? To be able to map something. Point, line, or area. Do I want points? Do I want lines like fences or drainage ditches? Or do I want areas like wetland perimeters or lakes or historic blocks in my community? But no, I want points, because these storm drains at the scale that we're collecting are really point data. Now, here's another thing to think about. You can customize your base map, as I've customized it here with a satellite image. And I'm also going to focus on, let's say, my school campus or my university campus. In other words, when my students pull up the survey, I don't want them to see the whole globe and have to zoom in, especially if they're on a mobile device, and especially if the bandwidth is limited. And yes, you can submit these survey points into a sort of a holding tank, and then when you get into Wi-Fi range, you can actually submit them to the map. And there's other ways to use offline that we don't have time to talk about right here, but know that you can do the offline data collection. Okay, so now I want to add a rating. Just for fun, I'm going to do something slightly different than the one that our colleagues at Uville University set up. So just for something different, and so you can see some variety here, I'm going to make a rating. what is the condition of the storm drain? I want some sort of rating in here. Now this is where, again, I'm highly abbreviating the preparation that should be required when you have this really rich discussion with your students about what should we collect, what units are we going to use, how are we going to collect it, do we need sensors, do we need extra equipment, what do we do if we have no Wi-Fi, etc. What kinds of data are we going to collect, nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio data, all that wonderful discussion. And I'm also going to abbreviate the fact that you can customize the appearance with your own logo. That'll be kind of fun, but I don't want to spend your time here doing that. Know that you can do it. It's not Photoshop, so you don't have infinite capability, but you can customize the appearance. And I'm modifying the end, and I'm also checking the box, show message to prompt the user to submit another record. I like doing that when I'm out in the field collecting data. I want to be able to click on a link that lets me submit another record if it's, especially if it's nearby, like trees, storm drains, litter, invasive species, historic homes, whatever I'm collecting. Now there's a couple of other tabs in the Survey 123 zone. I can't do much until I actually publish the survey, so I'm going to publish the survey right now with the couple of questions that I've just demoed here. And now I'm going to go over to the Collaborate tab. This is where, do I want my end user to open it in a browser? Do I want to force them to have the app? Or do I want to give them a choice? I usually give people a choice. And I'm also going to look at the Analyze and Data tabs. Now, Analyze, I don't have any records in here yet, right? I've just created this thing with you all today in our session. So there's not much to analyze, but I can preview it. So let's go ahead and preview the survey. That way I can test it out before I go out in the field. So yeah, they've got some nice tablet, laptop, phone. I'm going to test it out with a phone interface so I can see what it's going to look like when I'm out in the field. Oh yeah, look at that. My customized base map and my location right there on my university campus. I've got 2 meters for my width of the storm drain, and I'm going to add a photo that actually is not in that location, but just for demonstration purposes. And I'm going to close the preview. Okay, it looked good. It worked well. And by the way, in my questions in my survey, I can say if the user answers this, then do this. So for example, I oftentimes do, and here's my link to the survey, living, is it non-living for campus infrastructure mapping? If it's non-living, prompt them, is it a bicycle rack? Is it a flagpole? Is it a rock garden? If it's living, is it a tree? Is it a shrub? Is it a flower? Etc. So you can do some branching in the Survey 123 for more power. That can be really an effective technique. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and submit now that I've published this and shared it and gotten the URL for it. I'm opening up my survey, and great, your storm drain data was sent successfully. Press here to submit another one. So it's working as expected. Now, since I've got a point in there, I can go ahead and analyze. Actually, I've got a couple points in there now. I've got some data again. I've got a couple of photos in there now. I've got one that's in good condition, one that's in not so good condition. And I've got a couple of different widths on there, so I can export this into Excel. I can look at this on the map, as you can see right there. I can also open it in Map Viewer. That's our next step. Once we design the survey, we want to actually create a map that the survey feeds. And the reason why is because when you create a map that the survey feeds, that is the map that's going to go into your eventual story map and your dashboard. So you want to create a map that houses the data from the survey. So in this case, I'm going into the map. I'm going to say, okay, this is demonstration purposes, so I'll know what I used in terms of little title and metadata and tags right there. So now I've got a map. I've got a survey and I've got a map. Great. Okay, what do we do next? What do we want to do? Let's go ahead and sign into our ArcGIS Online Data Citizens Western New York organizational subscription or account, or organization really. It's an ArcGIS Online organization, just like the one you would have at a school or at another university campus or in a nonprofit organization or in a government agency. So there's lots of users in that organization and lots of content and other capabilities. So right here, my content, I've got a web map. I've also got a feature layer that was created from my survey. I've got the form itself. And I'm just going to move just to be tidy and be organized. I always tell students, it's good to be organized, especially with GIS. You've got a lot of G files, I files, and S files that link all these things together. So you want to be organized and not just save stuff wherever. It's going to make life a lot easier for you if you be organized and make folders, for example, as you saw me do right there. Now I've got a map, and I'm going to go ahead and open it in the new map viewer, the new default map viewer that rolled out around spring 2021. And I can see that that default base map wasn't quite to my liking. I'm going to change it to an OpenStreetMap base. It's a little busy, I realize, but now I can really see some fine detail, especially since I'm collecting this in an urban area. Obviously, I wouldn't use OpenStreetMap if I was out in the middle of a rural area or a wetland or something like that. I'd probably use a satellite image or even a terrain with labels. Now I can change the style of my points. I've got some fields in here. Where do those fields come from? They came from my survey, which fed a geodatabase, if you will, a feature service. That feature service has geographic coordinates and extent, as you know, the G part of GIS, and it also has a table behind the data, the I part of GIS, and that table contains fields, and you can map on any of those fields. That's why it's important to plan ahead when you're going out in the field. Do we want to collect numeric data? Do we want to collect nominal data? Trees. If we want tree height, do we want the actual height in feet or in meters, or do we want high, medium, and low? It depends on your needs. Depends on, of course, the goals that you've got for your unit. But here I've got a couple of numeric fields. I've got the approximate width, and I've got the condition, which is a ranking. It's an ordinal data, and then the actual width of the drain that I'm estimating is ratio data, so I can make graduated symbol maps like you see right there with a larger symbol for the wider storm drain. I know it's kind of a simple example, but kind of think of the possibilities here because you can map things thematically by these fields. Wow, that's pretty powerful that you've got at your fingertips, and we've done that in lots of other ways. Population, earthquakes, historic trade routes, etc. There's lots of things you can map, and then, of course, analyze the patterns, relationships, and trends. So now I'm going to change it, and since you're the folks that want to ask these hard questions and advanced questions, hey, look at that. We've got two variables now mapped. I've got the condition and the width. Let's go ahead and pop up a legend there so I can see exactly what I've got. Pan around on the left side there. Under More, there is a legend. But you've got some other things here that we can browse around and look at. Sharing and saving and so on and so forth. But let's go under More, and there's the legend right there. So I've got two variables mapped. This is a bivariate map. The condition in the color, and then the width is the size of the circle. And of course, I'm not confined to a circle. I can change that symbol to something else. But first, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of one of the variables in there. So I'm back to a single variable map. Okay, now I've got the condition there, and I've got some style options. The one that says option is always the one that you're on right now. If you want to change it, it doesn't say options. So the one that you're on, the symbol, the style that you're on always says options. Let's say I don't want a plain old circle. I've got lots of choices in here, folks, and you don't want to spend too much time on this, but it can be instructive to change the symbols so that again, the goal is to understand patterns, relationships, and trends. So here, I know it's kind of a simple example, but I'm going to go ahead and change the symbol just to demonstrate how you do it. I'm going to pick under government. I've got something that to me looks like a symbol for a storm drain. It's a circle with a bunch of water sort of waves in it. So I can change that symbol, and of course I can alter the size and so on and so forth because I've just changed the symbol to something else now. Okay, so to sum up, thus far we've created a survey, we've created a map, and now we're symbolizing that map, and classifying that map is another thing that we could do, time permitting. We could say I want a 4-class map. Now this is only I've only got 2 points in my map here, so classification doesn't matter a whole lot right here. But let's say you've got hundreds of points in your data set. You might want to use some classification methods, and there's different ways to classify data. And the way that you classify data affects the reader's perception of that particular phenomenon. So you can classify by equal interval. You can use the Jenks classification method and others that we could chat about. But we're changing now. We're going to the label. And I've clicked on the little brackets that allow me to go into what's called the Arcade Expression Builder. Arcade is a Esri language, again starting with ARC because that's kind of the way we name things. So Arcade, and I'm going to add some strings. Notice I've got a feature. What's the approximate width? And then I'm going to say plus meters, and I'm going to test it. Look, I've got 2 meters, 3 condition. That's not very intuitive for a label, so I'm going to add some spaces here. What I want for my goal is the storm drain is X meters wide and the condition is Y. In other words, 1, 2, or 3, right? Okay, that's looking pretty good now. Storm drain is 2 meters wide and the condition is 3. Storm drain is 1 meters wide and the condition is 1. Wow, which is poor, right? We had 1, 2, and 3. Excellent. So I've got label capability here. That can be pretty powerful too with these labels. And what I just demonstrated, I'm changing the font and colors and stuff like that. You probably expected that you'd be able to do that, and indeed you can. But the powerful thing, I think, is to be able to build an expression. These expressions can be used in lots of ways, not just labels, but other things across the platform to query the data on X and Y condition. Oh, you got a lot of power at your fingertips here, folks, and I wish I could get excited about this. Okay, now we've got, let's do something with the pop-ups. In other words, I want something to happen when I click on a point. And so the default pop-up, as you can see, is right there. So I'm going to change this instead of show as list to actually show in a sort of a gallery mode. I'm going to test it out here. Now, see, my photo is a bit larger. This is another advantage of the new map viewer, by the way. So I'm going to click there and test out that point. Obviously, that's not in Buffalo, but that's one of my photographs in the field. So, okay, that's looking good. It's exactly how I want it to be. And so far, so good. I can dock and undock those pop-ups. Okay, so I've done something with style. We talked about classification. We didn't do any classifying of the data, but we've done some style. We've done some pop-ups. We've done some labeling. And now let's add a chart. This is new with the new map viewer as well. This can be really powerful. I mean, we love, right, as educators, we love charts and graphs and that sort of thing to analyze data. Right now, it's not very exciting because I only have 2 points in this particular one from my own survey that I just created. But you can see there that I can add a chart. So that's what I've done there. And then I'm going to save this map and sum up again what we've done thus far. We've created a survey, and there's my new survey, Storm Drains Demo. And notice here is the original survey that my colleagues created, but now in my ArcGIS Online content, I've got a web map, I've got a feature layer from my survey, I've actually got the form, that's my survey 123 itself. So I've got some content in there that I can share. Notice those little icons. Is it shared with just me? Is it shared with my group, my class, Biology 101, Social Studies 101, whatever the class is, or is it shared with the whole organization, or is it shared with the whole world? By and large, you really just, in education, you pretty much want to share it just with the organization or with a group inside that organization, like your class. Let's go ahead and check out the map now that is populated with the survey you filled out. So this one has about 60 at the current time variables or data records in it. 60 storm drains. Here's a couple of mine out here in Colorado. As you can see, some hills of the foothills of the Rockies in the background there, and some interesting storm clouds. Too bad it didn't rain that day. We're kind of in a drought situation, unfortunately, with wildfires, and there's a massive storm drain at the bottom of that gully right there. So okay, let's take a look at. This is now the same thing that we were looking at earlier, but now instead of looking at the map with my data, with my survey that I created with you all just in this workshop, let's look at the map that's fed from the survey that the Duville colleagues created. And now let's take a look at that map. And with this map, you could do exactly what I did with the demo survey, and you could classify, you could change the pop-ups, you could add labels, you could create a chart. Wow, look at that one. You could symbolize in different ways, etc. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the data table. Again, at the time of this lesson, there were, let's take a look at, open the table here, storm drains. This is the data table. That is, once again, fed from the survey that you created. 60 records. There's 60 records in here with a creation date, the creator, the edit date, the other fields that are in there, the photo, attachment, location, and so on and so forth. So in short, creating a survey, feeding it into a map, symbolizing, classifying, labeling, and doing other things with that map and managing the content that you've got. I hope that was instructive, and remember that this is a process, so don't feel like you have to memorize all these steps. There are many tutorials and videos and us to help guide you in the pathway, but that is the workflow. Create the survey, well, plan the survey, go out and collect data, create a map from that survey, and then do things on that map. Symbolize, classify, filter, create charts, and then you're ready for the next steps, which would be to create derivative products from the map. For example, a dashboard and a story map. Thanks.